Hey team, welcome to Monday Morning Pearls. Before we get into the pearl, want to point you towards our podcast. You can find it at spanthechasm.com/podcast. Podcast series built by conversations with expert senior sales leaders, key success habits, things teams are doing well, areas where they've made mistakes that we can all learn from. The whole point of this is to help you sell better today. Now on to the pearl. Hey team, Monday Morning Pearl time. Great to have you with us today. We're continuing our series on recession-proofing your sales team. Super fired up about it. Ken, this is one of my favorite topics because you know I don't like shortcuts. Why it is such an important thing right now to take a best practices mindset. Talk to me about the impact of not doing that.
Well, I mean, imagine what starts to happen, and you may have already seen it, even though we got a little long in the tooth and we've had some success, where deals start slipping because we're taking some shortcuts. You know, we're taking our eye off the ball. You know, you're wondering why I can win a $20,000 deal at a normal close rate, but I can't win the $100,000, the $200,000, the $500,000 deal. Because the rigor matters on those size of deals. And if we allow people to start taking shortcuts, man, when the recession comes, you're just gonna watch your sales get cut in half.
I'm telling you, man, shortcuts turn into long cuts. Slow it down to speed it up. Make sure you're doing the right thing. I love that idea. So let's take it down to practical and tactical. What are some ideas that we can do, hands and feet on the street, to take more of a rigorous mindset, a more disciplined mindset, a more best practices mindset?
Yeah, well, I think the first one is we got to run our sales process, and we've got to run it with precision, right? We have to make sure that there's steps and gates. You know, what should the prospect be feeling at this part of the sales process? What needs to happen in order for them to get moved forward in the pipeline? What are we asking of them? Are we asking for more commitments from them as they go through the process? Are we making them lean in? Are we making sure we're identifying business problems and that we're looking at what the champion's personal win might be? But running that sales process with precision instead of just, well, it was a lead, it was an opportunity, and then it was closed, lost, or closed, won. It's not a good way to keep control of what's going on with you.
No, by no means.
So I think that's kind of one of the major things. But so let's say that we want to do that as a sales leader and put that in. I guess, well, how do we do that? I mean, what's the next step in this?
Well, I think one of the things we want to do, let's say we're going to run the play left to right the way it was designed. I think especially, always a good idea, but especially now, a lot of salespeople run that single-threaded. Like they sell to Ken, or they sell to Jason, or they sell to Randy, and that's their main contact. As our good friend Ron Reagan, who's no longer with us, trust and verify. I think this is a time, especially as we are moving through a sales opportunity, we must validate what we're hearing with other people inside the prospect, right? And then start to triangulate that information. Because I don't know about you, as you know, I've been around a little bit longer than you. I've seen a few more recessions, a lot of sales plays. If you're selling with one person, sometimes that person's got no swag, or they're delusional, or sometimes they might be your enemy's champion leading you on a false cause. So we definitely, I want to take a trust and verify, multi-threaded approach here. We cannot take any one person's word without validating it somewhere else. I think that's critical to do right now.
Perfect. I think and trust and verify is so important. And sometimes it looks like this. You know, I'm hearing it from you, but I want to go validate it with the economic buyer, or I want to validate it with others in the organization, or I want to have a goal-aligned reason where my champion will bring others into a call with me. Because I want to make sure that I'm getting to multiple places. We've seen so many times where the number one reason that a deal was lost of size was because the person didn't understand how weak their champion was within the organization itself. And so I think that's one of those things. You know, Gartner, a few years ago, was average of 6 people are in every deal making decisions. Now I think it's up to like 8.5 based on the last numbers. You know, but if you're not touching half that number, right there is a problem, and we need to make sure we trust and verify that the business problem exists, the priority and the budget do. So so now we've figured that out. We've said, okay, we've got a business problem. Right? We've validated it with a few people. How do we bring that home for our prospects?
Well, I think one of the key things, again, this makes sense all the time, but especially during a downturn when mindsets are a little bit different, when resources are a little bit cut short, I think this is where, I'm a big value guy. This is a time when we need to constantly be tying it back to value, recalibrating the value, make sure the value is still, value only exists in the mind of the prospect. Right. What I think is valuable doesn't matter. What my prospect does. So we've got a best practice here of making sure that we run the sales play the right way. We're going to put in a best practice of being multi-threaded, trust and verify. The third best practice I would suggest is constantly tie it back to and calibrate the value. Because if the current state that we made unacceptable and that glorious future state that looks like this value, if that changes, we got to know about it. And the other thing is if people take their mind off of this or take their eye off of this, they lose excitement for your deal and they're worried about their own job and some other stuff. This is where people get fired up, is on the value. We got to keep dragging people back to that.
Yeah, and a great way to do that, a great tactic to do that is to bookend in your deals. Like have a framework for all your calls where you bookend and you bring it back to, hey, I'm at this call because we decided we'd be here and this was going to be of value to you. And the call, hey, here's what I heard changed. What do you think? Validate the priority. But if you want more on that, check out some of our other Monday Morning Pearls because we do a whole thing on on frameworks. But okay, so we've done that. We've tied it back to value and the value for the client, not the value for us.
Right.
I promise.
Don't go past that quickly. The value in the prospect's mind, not our mind. I just want to hammer that one home.
Well, and so here's the funny thing, right? Oh, what's the value for the prospect? So you as a sales leader may ask your sales team, why are they buying? And they're going to give you what they think. But I will ask you a question. Is it more important to be right or have influence? Because I think it's more important that the prospect tell you what they want, the prospect repeat back to you what it is that they think they're going to get out of this, because that's actually going to give you influence, and that'll let you know whether or not they understand the value.
And that echo back is so critical because they'll articulate what they heard in the meeting, which may be entirely different from what you heard in the meeting.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I think you and I had that problem right before this Monday Morning Pearl. So, just teasing. So anyway, so here's the deal.
True.
Yeah, and true many times. So, here's the deal. How do you think it's going to feel, right? If you and your team are running the sales play with precision, you're removing all the areas that slip up along the journey, and then you're operating in just this precise military fashion that that you're able to get your prospect to repeat back to the value, that you're getting to more people within the buying channel and those decision makers within the deal, right? And that and you can talk to what do they need to do to move from each stage of the sales force. That's going to feel just phenomenal.
I got to think, a sales leader, if you as a salesperson are doing this, your sales leader is going to feel great. If you're a sales leader with a team, if your team is doing this, it's going to feel so great. You can trust the motion and not second guess. Is Timmy or Sally doing this the right way? Because you've been inspecting that and we know what they're doing. They're doing the 3 R's, the right thing, the right way repeatedly. Those kind of best practices, again, just tie it back. Run the play the way the play was designed. Make sure that you trust and verify, run it multi-threaded, and constantly be tying it back to and recalibrating the value. That kind of precision, that kind of commitment is going to allow you to succeed in a way that other people aren't during this time.
Yeah, and I think ultimately in a recession, we have to exercise so much rigor, but that's never a bad thing to do. So look, we're helping sales teams get ready for a potential recession or just to kind of get into hypergrowth states today if they even don't believe it's coming. These are the types of things that we think are incredibly important for the success of a sales team and an organization. Hey, so if there's something that sparked a thread in your mind and you said, hey, I want to talk more about that, please feel free to reach out to us, listen to us on social media. We'd love to talk to you.